Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
And yeah, just a reminder for participants, video and mic off unless you want to ask a question.
Oh, I'm not good at this. There's a way to read mode. There we go. Okay. Awesome. Sorry, I'm just press it off. Okay, great. All right. So I will get started then. So hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Erin Knight. I'm the founder and the co-chair of the Foundation for Rural Youth Empowerment, also known as FRY. I grew up in the very small town of Gilbert Plains, Manitoba, and after high school, I moved to Alberta to get my degree at the University of Calgary. I'm calling in from Winnipeg today, where my family lives, and I'm just really excited to be here and to get started. So before we dive in, I just wanted to share with you a little bit about our organization and who we are. So the vision of the Foundation for Rural Youth Empowerment is a world where a university education in any field is as accessible and achievable for rural background Canadians as a high school diploma is. And ultimately, our mission is to improve the transition experience of youth transitioning from small high schools in rural centers to urban post-secondary institutions. And we do those in three main ways. So that's firstly dismantling institutional barriers that disadvantage rural students, increase post-secondary literacy amongst rural high school students, and empower rural background university students to holistically manage their needs during their first year on campus. Oh, this one's like technical difficulty. Okay, sorry about that. We operate in three main pillars of action, and that's advocacy, outreach, and support. Under our advocacy pillar, some of our main activities are training university and post-secondary staff to identify rural students and identify their needs. We also push for some school-wide strategies to improve rural student outcomes at universities and at high schools. We assist with the improvements to existing on-campus support programs and resources that are currently available at universities and colleges. And we also conduct and share research, which we give to post-secondaries and high schools. Under our outreach pillar, what we do is we run information campaigns online that help students identify ways they can support themselves in university. We also host info sessions at rural high schools. We share post-secondary prep packages to rural high school students, and those prep packages contain lots of transition resources and ways that they can improve their success in university. We also maintain some online resources for students to access, such as our helpline, which I'll send the link to you after this presentation. In the future, we also aim to provide some degree of financial support to rural students, and that includes scholarships and travel awards. So, as I'm sure you're aware, college and university isn't going to look the same as we all once thought in the fall this year. The COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted the education system, honestly, to its core. And as graduating grade 12 students, it happened at the worst possible time for you, just as you were gearing up for this huge life change. And so we at FRY have recognized that, and we just want you to know that we're here to help you. And that's why I'm here speaking to you today. As a result of some of these major changes to post-secondary education, for example, the online university classes, a lot of the advice that we usually provide as an organization to high school students, such as how to adapt to a new urban environment, how to navigate campus, how to interact with your professors and your peers, and so on and so forth, all of that has changed. So what FRY has done is dive into what possibilities you could expect at the post-secondary level in the fall. And how you can prepare for some of those possibilities. So that's what you can expect for this presentation. And with that, I'd like to welcome you to Transitioning to Post-Secondary in a Pandemic. First, we're going to look at some of the possibilities that we might see for the fall. What will college and university look like, given that we know COVID-19 will still be impacting our lives for the next few months at minimum? In general, we know that there are a few possibilities, such as fully online and remote learning. combined online and in-person learning with social distancing, and fully in-person learning with social distancing, and everything in between those three. As you can see, none of these options are normal, and they're not certainly the way it was pre-pandemic. And post-secondaries are trying really hard to figure out which of these options are going to minimize the most risk, while also preserving your ability to learn and participate in your studies. And the reality is that as the COVID situation changes, the school's plan could also change. So as we move through these, we just have to keep in mind that above all else, the most important thing that you can practice right now as students is learning how to be adaptable. Before we look closely at any of the three possibilities, what I'd like to do is go over, just in general, what a semester at post-secondary looks like. Post-secondary is a different world academically than high school. And it'll be a big part of your transition regardless of how things end up in the fall. Your academics will be a big part that you're going to have to adapt to. So I do want to just go over some of these terms and some of the things you'll encounter in your first semester at a college or university. So for example, semester is a word that's used instead of term. And at most schools, there's 2 semesters, that's fall and winter. There are classes like in high school, and each class has an instructor. At university, a single class is usually held 2 to 3 times a week and scheduled on alternating days. So for example, Tuesdays and Thursdays. On the first day of classes, you'll receive a syllabus or a course outline, which gives the dates of upcoming assignments and exams so you know what to expect. This is usually posted on an online classroom website, such as Blackboard or D2L. The class then follows the schedule as outlined on the syllabus and may include things like assignments, essays, online or paper quizzes, group projects and presentations, labs, which are like extra class time spent doing hands-on learning, and often those are mandatory, tutorials, which are like tutoring sessions, sometimes they're optional, and office hours, and those are scheduled times where you can meet your instructor one-on-one. In college, the class can also include work experiences, shadowing, practicums, and practicums are supervised applied learning opportunities in the field. At university, after the last day of class, often you'll have an exam period that lasts a few weeks, in which your final exams are scheduled by the school. There aren't classes at this time, and then a few weeks after those exams, your final mark will be posted online. Those final marks make up what they call your GPA, and that's also known as your grade point average. That's the equivalent to your high school averages or marks. So now we're going to look at fully online and remote learning and what that would entail for you going into university this fall. In this scenario, the school will not resume in-person classes and will likely not open the majority of its facilities. Students can access their coursework and write exams remotely, and they'll not need to come to campus. With months to prepare, it's likely that in this scenario, we'd see a shift from emergency online learning, which was essentially just staff and administrators scrambling to put an online course into the internet that was not online before. And that's going to shift, we think, into intentional online learning, where most classes that are going to be online have been revamped to some degree and like made optimized for teaching over the internet. In an intentional online learning environment, students would likely have what we think to be more online live lectures, like over Zoom virtually, and fewer pre-recorded or canceled lectures. But also the opposite could happen, where we see many classes shift to a non-lecture format, as many online classes pre-COVID were designed to be. In a non-lecture format, for example, like an instructor might upload an educational video to the classroom website and post an assignment based on that video. They also might choose to make deadlines fluid, like allow students to submit work on their own schedule until the last day of classes, or maintain, on the opposite end of the spectrum, a weekly course schedule. The reality is that online courses can look really different, not only between institutions, but between even a single department at a single school, or even within one class. In post-secondary, unlike high school, the individual instructor or professor, as sometimes they're called, has a lot of power to decide what their class will operate as. And in that case, we can't really assume what those classes will look like because they're able to make them what they want them to be. Another thing you might see is full or higher use of exam software in your classes to enable exams to be taken online and with minimal cheating. Exam software is something that disables other programs on your internet browser from running on your computer. And it might even enable the webcam for the software you record during the exam, and it records you as you take the exam. And it analyzes the footage afterwards to see if they think you were cheating or looking around the room, etc. Some schools this semester either canceled exams entirely or requested that students print off, complete, and scan in their exams and send them to their teachers. And we anticipate that this is going to change in the fall. And if there are fully online classes, that they are most likely going to be administered remotely using exam software. It's the truth that, writing exams on your computer is harder. Plain and simple, it is much harder. It means that you'll need to have a space in your home that's quiet, isolated, and free from any distractions so that you can sit for the exam. It's my recommendation that before you head to university or college in the fall, that you have a game plan for where you're going to write your exams remotely and with what device you're going to use. It's really necessary that you have a device that you can access reliably. For example, a personal laptop that you can access at all times. If your classes end up being entirely online. And finally, for many students, online classes might mean a delay in physically entering campus life, and some will choose to stay at home even. Even for those who end up on campus, in this scenario, it's going to mean a lot of isolation and not much socializing. And we'll talk about that on the next slide. For combined and in-person learning with social distancing, this combination is going to be probably very likely for most post-secondaries come the fall semester, and many schools are aiming to bring about 30% of the student body into the classrooms, and the rest of the instruction will be done entirely online. In most cases, this means that small classes, and at large universities, this means that they're mainly for upper year students, so not first years like you will be. These small classes and labs would be mostly in person. And then the large classes, which are the introductory classes that you would be taking, most of those would be online. But it's true that some introductory courses do have in-person lab work. So it's my advice that you reach out to your school before you head over in the fall to find out exactly which of your classes are going to be online or partially online, and which will not be, which will be in person, before you decide to move to the city or B, stay at home, because you might need to go physically into class at some point. In this scenario, social distancing is absolutely going to still be in place, and that's going to definitely change how you access things like the library, access computer labs, engage in the campus community in general. It's very likely that most universities are going to develop social distancing activities to engage with the campus community. But the normal bustle of campus events, like, for example, clubs showcases where you get to see what clubs you can join on campus, most of these are probably going to move online. And so campus might end up feeling kind of like a ghost town. And that could definitely have an emotional effect on you. It's hard enough to learn how to feel at home on campus, in all honesty. And when it seems like there's no fun out there to be had, it could make it 10 times worse. So our advice is to really focus on relying on your friends and family for emotional support in the fall, and to take some ample time out of your day that's dedicated to just having fun. Host a Netflix watch party. You could spend time with a few friends. You could read a book, play a game. Whatever it is, we just ask that you please pay close attention to how you're feeling and make a promise to yourself to care for your own emotional and mental well-being in the fall. And finally, fully in-person learning with social distancing. Some smaller programs or schools, they might be considering having their classes fully in person. And if that were to happen, all the previous considerations from the combination one that we just looked at, those would still apply, save for the online class component. In this scenario, social distancing is going to still be in place, absolutely. So that means, again, campus life and campus culture are not going to be in full swing. So here, you'd be required to physically be on campus the majority of the time. And that means that some considerations need to be made for preparing for example, moving to a new place, learning how to be financially independent or semi-independent, adapting to living in a city, depending on your school, navigating a large campus, adjusting to bigger class sizes, etc. What I'm getting at is that If you're asked to be fully in person, that means all the transition things that are outside of the classroom are going to become more significant than for an online semester. So these are things you definitely need to keep in mind. And some of the tips I have for you in the next few slides will definitely help with that. So now that we have an idea of what we might expect going into the fall for university, I do just have a few tips that I'd like to go over. And those tips might help you a little bit with your transition as you move into university, or to college. In this scenario, I have a few general ideas, but nothing too specific because those depend on your situation. And if what I cover here doesn't really speak to you or you have further questions, I'm going to show you a resource that you can use to ask those questions, and we will be able to work with you one-on-one so that you're able to get the answers that you need. So these are just the general tips that we want to share with you today. The first one is you need to be able to take the time to get to know your instructors. In a university setting, it's a little bit harder to get to know your instructors than it is in a high school classroom because you're not with your instructors very often in comparison to your high school teachers. As well, you might be in a very large class. For example, you might be in a class of 300 people versus 25 people. And in that case, it becomes harder for the instructor to really get to know you on a personal level. But in everyone's experience that our organization has spoken to and consulted with, your classes become significantly easier once you get to know your instructors, because not only do you get to know what they will be expecting of you in some of your coursework and get to know the style of teaching that they really like to employ, they also know you in return, and they're more likely to help you out if you have an issue. They're more likely to consider your request if you're asking for an extension on an assignment or something like that. And with all this craziness going on with COVID, it's entirely possible that you might just need a mental health break, and you'll really rely on asking your instructors for possible extensions on your coursework. So definitely get to know your instructors, and that will sincerely help your transition experience. Second, if there's any events on campus, which there may be, even if they're social distancing events, we highly recommend that you attend them. It's really important that you build a community on your campus and you really start to feel like it's your home, even if you aren't physically there. And that's going to help you engage in your courses. It's going to help you get to know about opportunities that are happening. It's going to help you feel just a whole lot more fulfilled when it comes to your education. So in general, we just recommend that if something's happening, try it out. You'll get to know what events you like and what kinds of events that you don't care for. And we can't really anticipate what those will look like come the fall, but don't write anything off, I guess, before you try it. And really do spend time trying to build that community. Thirdly, get familiar with your online classroom website, for example, Blackboard, and check it often. And I bold that because it's really important. And something that many people do when they first enter university is it's a different style of assignment communication from your instructor. So in high school, oftentimes you'll have a teacher who will speak often in class about the upcoming assignment. He'll remind you of the deadline possibly, or she'll tell you, we have a test coming up in X many days, like, how are you feeling? And that's often not the case when it comes to college or university. So if you frequently check your online classroom website, you're going to know what deadlines are coming up. You're going to know what assignments are happening, and you really just need to make sure you're on top of it because there won't be anyone to tell you otherwise. So definitely check it often, and definitely know that that's where the communications are going to happen, and don't expect them to happen physically in the classroom, especially if classes are online. If we are in a situation where you end up moving to a new space or a new city or environment, we recommend that you take tours until you're comfortable. And that just means spend time in that environment before you need to use it for utility. For example, if you are moving to the city and you need to use transit for the first time to get somewhere important, like a job interview, for example, we recommend just trying it out beforehand and getting comfortable before it's really critical that you use it, because it maybe sounds really silly, but it's not that easy to use if you've never used it before. When I first moved to Calgary and I first used transit, I didn't understand that you had to press on the door of the bus for them to let you off in Calgary. So I would ring the bell and they would pull over to the stop and I would just stand there and nothing would happen, and then they would drive away. And so I luckily had taken enough tours before I needed to use the transit for anything important. But it's just something to keep in mind and something to explore before you need it for something critical. Also, take advantage of any summer academic support that you find, or if it's offered from your school. And I would recommend, especially if you're entering a STEM program such as engineering, because of the way that the instruction happened at the end of this school year, it's possible that you just might not have really gotten deep into the concepts as well as you would have if there wasn't a pandemic in your final semester or final term of grade 12. So lots of universities are offering summer help for something like calculus or other math skills or other STEM related skills. And I highly, highly recommend that if you're entering a STEM program, please take advantage of that summer support, because lots of it is for free. And it really will help you succeed because we just are not in a place where we can really assess your ability to go into your program with the skill set that you might have had if there weren't a pandemic. So definitely take advantage of those supports, and it will definitely help your transition. Here I have: attend all of your classes. Seriously, I mean this entirely seriously. Even not in a situation where we have online classes, it's extremely easy to skip classes at university. No one's checking, no one's doing attendance. You don't have to go, truly. But you really, really need to go. And when it's online, it's a lot easier to not, get out of bed and go to your class. It's a lot easier to say, I'm not going to open my laptop today and go to class. And so being in your first year, being that you need to build skills that will support you as you move on in the upper years of your education, being that you are trying to build yourself a solid foundation with a high academic average going into school, it's really, really important that you try your hardest in your first year classes, and that you definitely attend all of your classes. Because if you don't attend, there's not going to be a lot of opportunity for you to learn what you need to learn. And it's not like high school where you can kind of just get by. You really need to apply yourself to learn the content. You really need to know it inside and out to be able to answer some of the questions they're going to be asking you, which are more applied than just fill in the blank. So again, just really, really, really spend time attending all of your classes and try not to get sucked into the laziness, I guess, of not turning on your computer. I also want to recommend that you join any online groups, for example, on Facebook for incoming students, because more so than other years, this is going to be a really big year for online engagement with your classmates and with other people who are entering university who are in the same boat as you. And social support is key in post-secondary and college and in university, not only to keep you going emotionally and mentally and to help you feel really fulfilled and loved. It's also really important that you know people who are in your classes, because they will help you if you don't understand a concept, or if you want to collaborate to study. That's a really important tool for you in your first transitionary years of university, because you all might know something really well, but altogether you know almost everything. So absolutely join those groups, because there's not going to be really a lot of opportunities for you to meet up with them in person. And finally, I really want to emphasize that we should ask for help. It's really important that if you identify that you have something going on with you, whether it's mental health related or academic related, or even just like you feel lonely, please ask for help. Or if you have any questions about university or any questions about college, or something's just not making sense, we do have a tool that I'd like to share. It is called the Fry Canada Helpline. And our tool is designed to be both an email and a text tool to answer any questions that you have about post-secondary. And that's literally anything. We want to act like a resource for you, same as you would ask a sibling or a parent or a teacher. If you have a question, send it our way and we will absolutely answer it for you. And you can visit this link, frycanada.ca/help. And on our helpline, we have an option to text a number, and you can text the question and we'll get back to you over text. Or there's a quick email form. So you just fill in your name and your email address and your question, and we'll get back to you over email. And that is that. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and I hope that you enjoyed it. And I'm not sure how much time we have left, but I would be absolutely, totally grateful and happy to answer any questions. I don't know, Alyssa, who's the host in this room?
I don't think the host showed up.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
But thanks everyone for coming. And yeah, if you don't have any questions, just a quick thanks. Nice. You can put a question in the chat or unmute yourself and ask a question if you still have one.
Oh yeah, chat is really good. I just didn't have the window open. Thank you, Emmett.